You ready?
We're ready.
Okay.
Good morning. Good morning. This is Larry Gessel, Gessel and Associates Insurance Agency, and today our show is called The Inside Look. I'm joined in the studio today with a couple of friends, Michael Morris, Morris Media, and Dustin Blake, attorney, Blake Law Firm. So we, in The Inside Look, we try to peel the onion back, look at things that we don't know, that aren't commonly known, that might hurt us, and conversely, learn some things that might help us. And we've invited Dustin in today to talk about a topic that I think all of us at one time or another have been concerned with, and that is whether or not we had one too many drinks or not before we got behind the wheel of the car.
Perfect show for a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
If you've been pulled over, arrested overnight, Dustin's your guy, but you should listen to the show beforehand, right, Larry?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Dustin, why don't you say hello to the people?
Morning, my name is Dustin Blake, criminal defense attorney. I've been practicing for 13 years in November, drinking and driving cases, drug cases. I do other criminal cases as well, but a lot of my cases involve drinking and driving and drug cases. So
The party plates.
the party plates.
You know, Dustin,
That you try to avoid naturally. Right?
You don't see those as often anymore. The party plates. I mean, I drive my daughter around and I explained what that was and she was pointing it out. But when we were walking in the parking lot, I said, stop shouting that out. She's 5 years old. Party plates. I'm like, they're still going down the car.
What state has the party plates? There's actually a state that actually has yellow plates.
Well, I think
you see those more
Yeah.
often.
what does Ohio have? I thought those were the yellow plates here.
Well, no, there's a state that actually their plate is yellow.
Right. I think New Hampshire and New York have those yellow plates, but I just assumed everybody in New York was an alcoholic, so I didn't know. I don't travel that much.
What are they here? What do they look like?
They were
Right.
yellow. Yeah, but I mean, there are cars that you just know driving around have certain
Right,
bumper stickers.
right.
You go, I know they spent some time in court.
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's funny. When we were young, the laws were not really even in existence. You know, there was no such thing as Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and you know, we probably all can look back on our younger years and think, "Pooh, if those laws had been in effect back then, we might have been in trouble had we gotten stopped." You know, so things have most definitely gotten a lot tougher. Being in the insurance business, I see a lot of it. Dustin, of course, you're living as representing the folks that have had that unfortunate circumstance occur. What you mentioned something OVI DUI. What's the difference? I guess I don't even understand that. What is there a difference, or is it?
Well, it just used to be called DUI. The law changed to now it's classified as OVI.
Okay.
Most people still call it DUI, so I say that because it resonates, especially with older people. It's like tomato, tomato. You know what I mean? There really isn't a difference other than the law changed, and now it's stated as operating a vehicle.
I gotcha. You know,
That
know,
includes more than just alcohol, right? I mean, that's drugs as well. Is that
That
why
does,
they
yeah.
changed that designation?
Yeah, that does it. And most people don't know that. And now what we have are police officers who are trained in drug recognition. It's called DRE, drug recognition experts, where the classical instance is you get pulled over and they start looking at your eyes with a pen, and then they're asking you to walk down a line and stand on one leg and do all of these things, which are really kind of silly, you know, when you think about it. If I asked you to come outside, stand on one leg, you'd be like, shut the hell up, I'm not going to do that,
Well,
right?
Dustin, I'm very
I
athletic.
see
I
him
can do
hop
that right now.
I see him hop like a chicken in our
Yeah.
business networking meetings all the time.
Right.
I'm here for the pen test if that's what we're doing today.
I give it to you, certified in it. But now we have police officers who are actually being trained to recognize whether or not you are under the influence of drugs. So they've taken these classes and they get certified in that. And what they do is they look at your tongue to see if it has bumps on it. And it's pretty new. So you're looking at me like, why is a police
Right.
officer able to look at my tongue? They're not a doctor, right? But that's a newer thing that's emerging here and in other states as well.
So can I, you said in the lobby, you don't have to blow for those tests. Can I refuse to show my tongue?
Yeah, most people don't understand that when an officer asks you to get out of the car, it's a consensual thing. Do you mind doing this? It depends on the officer that you get. I mean, maybe some are more forceful than others about, hey, I want you to do this testing. You need to do this testing. But really, you don't have to do the eye test. You don't have to do the walk test, especially if you have some physical impairments or you don't have good balance. Why would you do those tests?
Especially if you're
Yeah.
drunk.
Yeah.
Because now you really don't have your balance. No, just kidding.
Absolutely, but I mean, at the end of the day, those tests are really more about balance and coordination, the walk and turn,
Than
the one-legged
impairment,
stand, than
yeah.
impairment. But they're really for the police and the prosecutor to basically prove that you're impaired as well.
So if you refuse to do that, to do the test, the walk test, the visual impairment, is that like a refusal to blow? Do they have certain legal ramifications that automatically kick in?
Well, that's a great question. Those do not. The breath test or the urine or the blood test, those are the only tests when you refuse that have ramifications. And the way, it's a little bit like fool's gold. What the police officer will tell you is, if you refuse to do the breath test, then your license will be suspended for a year. If you take the test, though, and blow over, let's say, then it's only suspended for 90 days. That's generally the way that they get you to take the test, but that's misleading or false. Not, I shouldn't say false, it's misleading in some regard, because as soon as you resolve your OVI case in one way or another, then the license suspension that they're talking about, that 90-day or year-long license suspension, that goes away, and the court imposes their own suspension, which is generally speaking a year. It's a year now, so you were talking about the laws changing and getting much, significantly worse over time. In most recent time, a year or so ago, it changed from 6-month license suspension for your first offense, OVI, DUI, and now it's a year. So the penalties keep increasing and changing, but
You called that Marcy's Law or something? Is that?
Yeah.
That was the legislation that was
that
passed.
passed to increase the license suspension, among other things, the party plates, the whether or not there's this thing called the interlock that you blow into.
Oh, that's the thing that's on your steering wheel.
Correct, yeah. So have you seen like 40-Year-Old Virgin, the movie?
Yes.
Yeah. You have that sort of scenario that has come a lot more into play in recent time.
So,
But just to go back to that, the thing that's a little misleading about that is they say that, which is technically true, but in reality, doesn't really work like that. And so if you think, should you take the breath test? Well, if you're going to be above that 0.08 level, right, then you probably shouldn't take that test, because that's what the state or city has to prove against you. And if they can prove that you were operating your vehicle above that, then you can be found guilty of OVI.
There, you were going to say something.
well, that was going to be my question at the end of the day. Do you blow or do you not? So I guess, and that's a hard thing if you're already impaired, to be able to think that through, and the adrenaline spiking, and you got the whatever going on,
Right.
lights are flashing, and how does a person? I think everybody that I've talked to that has had that unfortunate experience believes that you don't blow, but it sounds to me as if laws have changed where you can actually be more punitively penalized, so to speak, for not blowing than you would if you blew. But then again, you're saying, well, if you do and you're over, they've got an ironclad case against you. You're toast.
Well, you're pretty much cupping yourself if you know you're over
right.
and you're like going to do it. There's no reason. You want to add a little bit of suspense and some mystery into your not doing it.
Yeah, it's a pretty loaded question. I mean, that limit's pretty low. If you've been out, it depends on your weight, how much you've had, when you drank, all that stuff. So to definitively answer, whether or not you'd be over that limit, that's a very hard question to answer. You should call me, right? And then I can
Whether it
steer
be
you
1
through
in
that.
the morning or 2.
You can, and I've done that. I've done that many times.
Do people call you? Like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, they're calling you from outside of the IHOP going, hey, I got pulled over. What do I do?
Taco Bell, generally speaking. But.
Well, I mean, that's the place to go.
White Castle.
That or, yeah, White Castle. Shout out to those places where you get OMBIs. But in your business, what I was thinking is, Larry and I had a conversation about somebody that came to him about insurance, and this guy had like more DUI and red flags. Like, Larry, in your business, how do you have to have state minimum coverage, but how do you insure somebody like that?
It can be very difficult. There are limitations that get placed on people that have had these problems. There are certain insurance companies on the personal line side, personal auto. The courts oftentimes will mandate an SR-22 filing, and there are a lot of insurance companies that won't even offer that.
Can you explain what that is?
Well, it's a requirement for the insurance company to provide evidence of insurance to the court to mandate that this person does have
That
financial responsibility.
That generally speaking occurs when you're pulled over or get a traffic ticket and you don't have insurance, then you get penalized and you have to carry this SR22 because you get a suspension from the BMV.
Yeah.
I've heard of
So-
SR22s a lot for people that
Yeah.
don't have insurance or have a DUI.
And
or
a lot of
something
your
like that.
preferred underwriters just don't even offer it. They're not a non-standard quote unquote insurance carrier per se. So we know we can't even turn to those insurance companies to hopefully get the best rates for those people. So that's one problem. A larger problem can occur when a guy drives for a living. If he has a commercial driver's license, commercial insurance takes a real hard stand on that. 5 years, forget about it. You're not going to be on that policy. So there are guys that lose their jobs. If they can't drive, they're not employable. And that's a real cold, hard reality for a lot of people.
Dustin, do you get a lot of those? I was just thinking, because the reason I ask is we did some work with a trucking company where they were trying to recruit. And right now, hiring drivers is such a tough thing to do because there's not enough of them. But then you have to weed through and you find out a guy had, a DUI when he was 21 years old and he's 27 now, and they can't pass these inspections or whatever. They can't get hired. How does somebody deal with that, like in your world, Dustin? How do they deal with it once they get to you? What's the likelihood they can pursue a normal life and actually have insurance and not an SR22?
Well, once they get to me, it's a lot better than if they hadn't got to me. Right.
So 50-50 shot. No, but that's what I'm saying.
But no, it's so if you're talking about like a CDL operator, the restrictions on their license, that firefighters, right? So not to make too much light about drinking and driving cases and those sorts of things. They were talking, a little bit about Taco Bell, but people can. You can go out and you can have a drink, certainly a glass of wine, a glass of beer. Maybe you have a second one. You're operating your vehicle late at night, and there's a question about whether or not you're over, right? There's a real gray line there, and I've represented many professional people, and we're talking about professional drivers, right? Firefighters, cops, other people who... Tony Stewart, right? that are out there operating their vehicles, and there's a question about, am I doing something? Because once you get past a certain point in time, then I think the police officers have their radar up as to whether or not this person is operating a vehicle, and they're going to pursue investigating an OVI, a DUI offense, right? So
witching hour when they're on high alert and watching.
Yeah, they're on high alert basically. Yeah. So
what are those hours, just so I know to avoid those things? Because you know where you always see them. You see them on the freeway, especially like 315, and if you're on 315, it's probably Sunday morning when you're hearing this, but you'll see them because that's where all the bar business was on Bethel Road and all that, and people would head south to go home or whatever. But you see them in those same areas every single night, and they're always pulling somebody over. It's not a mystery. You know they're out there.
Right.
I think after midnight, once you get close to midnight or after, you pretty much got a bullseye on your car to do that. And I've seen cruiser video where, the officers are just kind of, because the video will kick on and they're driving, and then they fishtail around, U-turn it, and do that a couple times. Just kind of perusing the roadway,
right.
Looking for, a suspected DUI, OVI driver.
There has
you mentioned video, and I know you have in the past challenged the validity of video, whether video is present or whether it's missing for whatever the reason, and whether there's been a mechanical failure. I know in the past you've talked about some of the breathalyzers that were known to have some faults in them. I don't know if that was a mechanical thing or whether it was a training issue, but what are some of the things that you kind of look for as a defense? What some of the chinks in the armor, so to speak, of the prosecutor that you try to circumvent and create reasonable doubt, so to speak? I know there's certain things that you're an aggressive guy. You play to win. I know that about you. You're a competitor. You played sports in college, and you were a competitor. You played to win, and you're going to put a hit on them, right? So you play to win in the courtroom.
Well, I can't tackle anymore. I try to do that.
You can in the lobby. Susan
but a
doesn't run like she
competitor's a
used
competitor, and I know you play to win. So
Well, I played for Mount Union College.
Okay.
I know when I was there, the teams that I played for won 3 national championships.
There you go.
So I was pretty fortunate enough to do that. But the OVI is very technical. The whole process is. And what I'm looking at is the whole thing, from the initiation of the stop, that they have a good reason to do that. Every test that they conduct on you, did they do that according to the requirements that they need to do that, right? And you mentioned camera. There's a big push. Columbus Police now, every officer has body camera, right? So in addition to just the cruiser video, right, we have all this other camera
Didn't think about that, yeah.
that's available in much better quality than before. So I used to get an OVI case. You'd have one cruiser video. Watch that cruiser video. Now you get one, and I have like 6 different videos to watch, potentially, depending on how many officers come to the scene, which is a lot more work for me at the end of the day. But the thing about that you should understand is that everyone's kind of evaluating. Everybody perceives what they see, and they kind of judge it, right? And so if everything's on video, which it is nowadays, you need to be cognizant about that as a person who's being arrested. I think most people don't think about that. So what does that mean? You need to be polite. You need to be courteous. You don't need to be talking, too much or saying stupid things on there, because everything's going to be captured. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a client. They get in the back of the cruiser, cops outside, and they think nobody's really watching.
Smile for candid camera,
and
right?
they start talking about just the stupidest stuff that they could say, or saying just
Hope they
really,
don't find that 10 pounds of pot in the trunk.
Yeah, I mean, or calling their girlfriend and crying on the phone.
Oh, never cry, guys.
My family laughs at me.
At least not on camera.
No.
Right? Yeah.
I'm
Not even
constantly
your wedding.
watching live PD and cops on TV. I'm addicted to it. I love those shows.
Yeah.
And 90% of these cases all stem from a minor traffic violation. You got a tail light out, or you didn't signal, or something stupid. But it's always giving them the probable cause to start looking. And the next thing you know, the dogs are there and the whole 9 yards. So just one thing leads to another, to another, to another, and ultimately to you.
But back to that point, everything's going to be on camera. So from the moment that you get pulled over, everything that you say can and will be used against you. And
I've seen Law and Order. I know that phrase.
well, but they don't read you your rights immediately, right? Because you're not technically in custody.
True.
So for Miranda, you have to be in custody, and they have to be interrogating you. Those are the 2 prongs there. Most people don't realize that they say, well, I've had 1 beer, 1 drink, right? It makes them feel good about, like, they're not totally lying.
Right. I gave myself up a little bit, but I didn't do anything wrong.
Right, but you're still giving yourself up. It doesn't make much sense to say that, because that gives then the officer more reason to detain you, to investigate an OVI or something else along that line, right? Yeah.
I always like to open up. I've had 32 drinks, prove that I haven't. Because then it puts them on the defensive, right? That's the way to do it?
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't
No,
recommend
no,
that? Okay.
no. 33 maybe.
Yeah.
So what is the state of affairs right now in Ohio with regards to marijuana legalization and driving impaired while under the influence of marijuana? I, from an insurance perspective, I see trade journal articles that talk about states that have gone through this, and there's much debate as to what the impact has been on people's driving records and convictions while under the quote-unquote influence of marijuana. But what are you seeing and hearing on that, and where does Ohio stand on that?
Well, Ohio is in this place where they either will have an officer who's certified in this drug recognition expert
Like you
field.
were talking about earlier
Yeah.
with the tongue.
And they go in, they do all this testing, and then they ask you to take a pee test, a urine test, right?
Which I'm glad to do at any time.
A urine test?
Yeah, I mean, I'll do it right now.
Alongside the road.
Yeah, whatever. At a restaurant, whatever you need.
Which is a little invasive, I think. I mean, to take a urine test. I've never taken one personally, but I wouldn't want to. But if you are somebody who smokes marijuana on a pretty regular basis, what will happen is you'll probably be over the threshold limit because it's going to be in your fat cells, in your system. It's going to stay in there. And that is the part that I think is a little unfair, especially these days, with that particular aspect of the marijuana law. In the drug laws, I don't think they really take account of that, but you can certainly be charged with that. You don't have to take a urine test either, right? If you
So you can just flat out say, no, I'm not going to do
You
this.
can refuse to do that, right? And to that they would then say, well, your license is going to be suspended for a year if you don't take it, and you go back to that, or that 90-day thing if you take it, and we get the results back and you're over. Wow, that was a bird just flew right in that window.
That was
It was
awesome.
impaired.
Good thing we insured that window. That bird was high that just ran into the
Yeah,
window
it
while we were
certainly
recording.
was.
But that goes back to the OMBI part, right? So it's not just DUI, because if it's like driving under the influence, that's one thing. But to me, and I could be wrong, OMBI covers everything. If you're on meth or you've been drinking, it seems like that designation got opened up wider to cover more people.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
Larry, how does that affect somebody? Have you had somebody come and say, I lost my license because I was smoking a bale of hay that was marijuana?
Yeah, and Alex, you want to address that? I don't think most people cop to that. I think that we typically find these things out the hard way. When you
I
say
think
that's
you probably see it as the same. It'll show up as the same OVI, DUI.
Oh, I see what your question is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no distinction on the motor vehicle report.
I was just
I
curious
misunderstood
because
your
there's
question.
so many people that they're overturning these convictions in other states, whether they legalize marijuana. But when it comes
Yeah.
to being insured or being convicted, that law is changing and it's progressively going through other states. It's going to affect your insurance because what if I lost my insurance because I got caught with marijuana? Now it's legal. Does that get expunged?
Expungement is another animal. You care to?
You cannot expunge an OVI conviction in Ohio.
I just like that you said expunge. We got the triumvirate of it. That was good. You can't get rid of that ever. So even if it's
not if you
the
have a
law's-
conviction because it's prohibited under the law.
Got it.
If the case were resolved and it were dismissed or something like that, then you could potentially try to do that. Now it's actually called sealing the record. They don't technically expunge it. It used to be in the old days they would expunge it. They would get rid of it forever. They still have a record somewhere. It's just not accessible. Right, totally.
And of course, then there's the whole physical control. A lot of times a DUI or OVI is reduced down to a physical control charge, correct?
Well, there's two ways. The traditional way is the reckless op that everybody kind of knows, which is a moving violation. It carries points with it, 4 points, or can be less potentially. The other way is it's amended to what's called a physical control, which is a non-moving violation. Doesn't carry any points. It's the thing where you pull over to the side of the road. You're not technically driving the car, but you're capable of driving the car, and you're under the influence, right? That's that sort of a charge that it doesn't count as an OVI against you. Most people don't know what that means, though. When you say physical control, right, it just sounds kind of weird.
Right.
But I think that is
When
done
the
that way
underwriters-
because it encompasses so many things. Physical control, I'm not in it, but I could be sitting against the car. If it's a neutral, I'm physically controlling that car if I push it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go
There's a
ahead, Larry,
lot.
you look stumped.
There's a lot to this, and from an underwriting perspective, they treat the physical control the same as the full-blown DUI because they know where it originated from.
Right.
And the underwriting software tools and analytics are so sophisticated today. They know the drill. They know where it all initiated and how it got started. So I see that we're about out of time. It's always amazing to me how fast time goes by.
I try to tell them in the lobby, this is going to go by faster, not even going to
It
realize
really
you're here.
does.
But before we get out of here, if people do want your service or need your help, how can they get a hold of you, Dustin?
I have a website, dustinblakelaw.com, 614-224-4114 is the office number. Feel free to call at any time if you have any questions regarding DUIs or other criminal-related matters. If I don't do it, I can certainly refer you to a colleague of mine that I feel comfortable passing you off to.
Awesome.
So,
Larry.
appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, we're glad you're here.
We'll have to
Dustin.
bring him back at some point.
It would be
because
a lot of fun.
This was only scratching the surface, but
It
there's
really
so much
is.
more he could get into.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Larry, how can they get a hold of you?
You can reach our agency at www.gesselins.com. That's GESSELINS.com, or at 614-697-2020. And always, as we sign off, we try to do a shout out to always be kind to one another. I think our country has lost its apathy and kindness towards one another. So please, as you're driving about, be kind to one another, and as you run into others, extend that courtesy, that common courtesy that we seem to be losing. Thanks again for having us,
Absolutely.
being with us today, and Michael, it's always a pleasure.
Yes, sir.